Okay, today I'm going to talk to you about fat loss and sleep. So this is usually the first place I start with most clients that come to see me about fat loss is sleep. And a lot of people are really surprised by this. And when a lot of people ask me, well, what can I do to start trimming up? I'm eating a little bit better, I'm exercising a little, and I'm not losing any weight really, or I'm not losing as much as I'd want to. And I'll ask them, well, what time are you going to bed and how many hours do you sleep? And people don't seem to understand how these two are related, which I understand at first it could seem that there's zero correlation at all. But there's actually a really strong relation, and in this video I'm going to explain to you how these two things are actually related. So we're going to start by first explaining how your hormone cycle should be working throughout the day. Don't worry, I'm not going to get really complicated. I'm actually going to simplify this a bit. If you know anything about science and hormones, yes, this isn't exactly the way it works, but this is a simplified version so everyone can understand this. So we'll start with how it should be working and then move on to how most people's hormone systems are working during the day. So in the morning, the sun comes up, and hopefully the sun starts to go through your window, hit your skin, and this triggers your body that it's time to wake up, it's time to get going, the day is about to start. So your body, when the sun first starts to hit it, will start to trigger your stress hormones to be released because your body's about to go under the stress of the day. Getting up, going to work, or taking care of your kids, or the drive to work, everything you're going to be doing throughout the day, your body's going to have to cope with this and deal with this. So it releases a bunch of your stress hormones. So one of these really important stress hormones is something called cortisol. Okay, we'll keep this in mind. We're going to talk more about cortisol later. So your body releases all these hormones, and they slowly start to increase until about midday. So around noon, 1 o'clock, your body is releasing the most amount of these stress hormones that it's going to throughout the day. Then after it hits its peak around noon, it's going to slowly start to decrease how much of these hormones they produce till the sun starts to set, let's say around 6 p.m. It's going to vary obviously depending on the time of the year, but to keep things simple, let's say a little after supper, sun starts to go down, so your body really starts to produce less of these stress hormones, so it wants to start getting ready for bed. So as it starts to produce almost none of these stress hormones, it starts to produce a lot of your recovery hormones, so the hormones that are going to help you to grow and repair mentally and both physically once you go to bed. So these are going to slowly increase until around 10:30, and then they're going to stay high the whole time you sleep. So this is the ideal way it works. Basically, during the day, stress hormones go up, slowly go down, decreasing the amount your body produces. As your body starts to decrease the stress hormones, it starts to increase the recovery hormones. And this is the ideal way it's going to work. The way most people, though, their hormone systems aren't doing this. So what happens is your body wants to go to bed somewhere between 10 and 10:30, 11 o'clock, depending on the time of the year. Again, it's all based on when the sun goes up and when the sun comes down. So let's just say 10:30 to keep things simple. So your body wants to go to bed around 10:30. How many people actually go to bed at 10:30 these days? Not that many. Most people are staying up to watch TV, on the computer, on Facebook, or checking their email, or they're just staying awake because possibly they can't fall asleep. Maybe they want to go to sleep, but they just can't fall asleep. So usually most people, I would say, are probably getting to bed somewhere around midnight or 1 a.m. So they've shifted what time, compared to where their body wants to go to bed, they've shifted this to much later. So what happens is this starts to mess up your hormone cycle. So your body has to continue to produce all the stress hormones because you're staying awake much later than you should. So instead of it, let's say 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, where your stress hormones should be really low, instead they're very high because you're staying up to watch TV. Maybe you're watching, Law and Order, or any of those crime shows where there's a lot going on and kind of suspenseful. This actually will stimulate all those stress hormones. Or even, let's say you're watching a hockey game and you're really into the game, you're getting really excited, this again is going to stimulate all those stress hormones. So what happens is, at around 10, 11 o'clock midnight, your body's still producing a lot more stress hormone than it should. And so this can cause you to have problems actually falling asleep. So what happens is your body will probably get a nice short version of sleep, so maybe 6 hours of sleep. So you sleep from midnight till 6, 7 a.m., you get up to go to work. So your body didn't actually get a full night's sleep. It didn't get a chance to get that full amount of growth and recovery hormones that it wanted to. Then you wake up, the sun comes out, your body signaled stress hormones, so it releases a lot of stress hormones. And then as you go on through your day, most people aren't keeping their stress levels intact. And not just stress, don't think of it just in emotional and mental stress. Think of it also food. Food's a stress in the body. So if you're eating a lot of processed food, that's a stress on your body. If you're not exercising, that's a stress on your body. If you're exercising too much, that's a stress on your body. So most people these days are putting too much stress on their body. So then these stress hormones are really starting to get pumped into your bloodstream. And then a lot of people, they're feeling tired and run down because they didn't get enough sleep last night because their hormone cycle's starting to get messed up. So what do? They take coffee or a Red Bull or some sort of energy drink or energy pill. And what this does, this actually stimulates, again, all those hormones, those stress hormones, to produce more so that you get a bit of energy. Then what happens? You start to crash off of this. So basically, you wind up putting your body through this really, really, really hard amount of stress because it has to produce so much of these stress hormones. Okay? So, what does this have to do with fat loss? Well, cortisol, remember we mentioned it earlier. When cortisol is produced, and it's not all a bad thing, your body needs a certain amount of cortisol, but when your body has to produce too much cortisol, it'll actually signal your body to store more body fat. So anytime cortisol comes into your system, it actually signals to your body, okay, it's time to store body fat. And all of us need body fat, so that's not a bad thing. But when you start to produce too much of this stress hormone because you're not getting to bed on time and because you're not controlling the stresses in your life, what happens is you start to store excessive fat. So even if you're cutting down calories or you're watching what you eat or you're exercising, if you're keeping too stressed, then what happens is your body's still going to find a way to store fat because that's what that hormone triggers you to do, is store fat. Okay? So what can you do to fix this? So a couple big things. First one, you want to try to get your stress levels intact. Actually start to look at getting your stress levels under control. Start to get the mental and the cognitive stress under control. Make sure you're not exercising too much. Make sure you're eating real food. You're actually eating food your body wants, not this processed garbage, not taking in caffeine all the time, not taking in processed sugar all the time. And these will start to decrease your stress levels, so you'll start to produce less cortisol. More importantly than all this, we have to start with sleep so that your body can actually get the mental and physical recovery it needs. So, let's say you're someone who goes to bed around midnight or 1 a.m., or even later than that too, doesn't really matter. You have to try to get it on to 10:30, give or take. You have to try to get it around that time where you're going to bed. Now, this isn't going to happen right away where if you're going to bed at midnight and all of a sudden you switch and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to bed at 10:30. What you want to do is make slow changes. So try to go to bed 20 minutes earlier every single week until your body gets used to going to bed at 10:30. After a few weeks, you hit 10:30, it'll be used to that. And at first, it might be really hard for your body to go to bed earlier. Even 20 minutes for some people can be really hard, and usually this is because of the amount of stress hormones that's going in through your body. It's signaling that it's not time to go to bed yet. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you're looking for more information, you can visit us online at www.peak-personaltraining.com. Or if you're finding that you're still having problems with sleep, you can book a free consultation with us and we can see if we can help you out with those problems.